My neighbor, Mr. Henderson, was the kind of guy you could set your watch by. Every morning at 7, he'd be out there, tending to his prize-winning roses. Every evening at 6, he'd take his little dog, Buster, for a walk. So when his house stayed dark for 3 straight days, and his roses started to wilt, the whole neighborhood noticed. We called the police, filed a missing person report, and feared the worst. Then, on the 4th morning, just as the sun was rising, there he was, standing on his porch, plain as day, looking completely unharmed. We all breathed a collective sigh of relief. I walked over, waving. "Mr. Henderson." We were so worried. "Where have you been?" He just stared at me, not with recognition, but with a vacant, clinical curiosity. His eyes, usually warm and crinkling at the corners, were flat and cold. "Henderson," he repeated, testing the name on his tongue as if it were a foreign word. "Yes, that is what you call me." It sent a shiver down my spine. Later that day, I saw his wife, Carol, frantically waving me over. She was pale, her hands trembling. "Something's wrong with him, Mike," she whispered, her voice cracking. "He's not right." She led me inside. The house was a mess, which was unheard of for the meticulously tidy hen. In the living room, Mr. Henderson was standing in front of the television. He was tapping the screen with his index finger, a look of profound confusion on his face. "This box," he said, not looking at us. "It makes noise. It shows moving pictures." Carol wrung her hands. "He's been like this all morning. He didn't know how to use the coffee." He asked me what a fork was for breakfast. He just stared at it, turning it over and over in his hand. I tried to reason with her. "Maybe he had some kind of accident, Carol. Amnesia, maybe. Did you take him to a doctor?" She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "He won't go. He says doctors are inefficient. A host keeps observing everything like he's never seen it before." Over the next few days, it only got weirder. I'd see him in his yard, not tending his roses, but studying them. He'd pick up a single petal, hold it up to the light, and stare at it for minutes on end. He'd touch the bark of a tree with the same analytical detachment. He no longer walked Buster. The poor dog would whine and bark from inside the house, but Mr. Henderson seemed not to hear him, or worse, not to care. One evening, I was taking out my trash when I saw him standing perfectly still in the middle of his lawn, staring up at the full moon. There was something profoundly unsettling about his posture. It wasn't human. It was too rigid, too predatory, like a wolf catching a scent on the wind. He slowly turned his head, and his eyes locked onto mine from across the street. The moonlight glinted in them, and for a terrifying second, they didn't look like human eyes at all. They looked like they were glowing, reflecting the light like a nocturnal animal. My blood ran cold. I dropped the trash bag and hurried back inside, locking the door behind me. The next morning, Buster was gone. Carol was hysterical. She'd searched everywhere. Mr. Henderson, however, was calm. Too calm. Too calm. When I asked him if he had any idea where Buster might be, he just smiled. It was the first time I'd seen him smile since he'd returned, and it was the most horrifying thing I'd ever seen. It didn't reach his eyes. It was just a baring of teeth. "The small one made too much noise," he said, his voice a low, guttural rumble that didn't sound like him at all. "It is quiet now." That was when the stories started coming back to me. The old tales. My grandfather used to tell me about this land, about things that could wear a person's skin, creatures that could mimic a voice, a walk, but could never quite get the soul right. They were hunters, observers, learning our ways to move among us undetected. They would study us, learning what a fork is, what a television does, what a name means. I started watching him more closely. I saw him at night, moving through the shadows of his backyard. His movements were impossibly fluid, unnaturally silent. He'd climb his own fence with a speed and agility that a man his age shouldn't possess. He'd just stand in the darkness, watching the houses, watching the people inside, learning. One night, a storm rolled in. The power went out. plunging the neighborhood into darkness. I was lighting candles when I heard a scratching sound at my back door. My heart leaped into my throat. I crept to the kitchen window and peered out. In a flash of lightning, I saw him. Mr. Henderson, or the thing wearing his skin. He was on all fours, crouched by my door, his head cocked to one side. His face was distorted, his features seeming to shift and stretch in the strobing light. His mouth was open, and a long, dark tongue flickered out, tasting the air. His eyes were burning yellow orbs in the darkness. He wasn't trying to open the door. He was examining the lock, learning how it worked. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my chest. I scrambled for my phone, my fingers fumbling in the dark. I had to call for help, but who would believe me? Who would believe that the man next door wasn't a man at all, but something ancient and terrible that had come back in his place? Another flash of lightning illuminated the room, and he was no longer at the door. He was at the window, his face pressed against the glass. The smile was back, wider this time, a grotesque slash in the borrowed face. His eyes bored into mine, and in their depths I saw a chilling intelligence, a bottomless hunger, and in a voice that was a perfect, chilling mimicry of my own, it whispered, "I'm learning. Thank you for listening. If this story sent a chill down your spine, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Stay safe out there." The call came in just after midnight, a frantic voice crackling over the radio. A hiker, lost for 3 days in the backwoods of northern Minnesota. The temperature was pushing 30 below, with a wind chill that could freeze exposed skin in minutes. We were a search and rescue team, but we all knew this was likely a recovery mission. Nobody survives that long out here, not in this cold. We set out on snowmobiles, our headlights cutting through the swirling snow. The forest was eerily silent, the kind of deep, oppressive quiet that only a heavy snowfall brings. Every tree was coated in a thick layer of ice, their branches groaning under the weight. After 2 hours of searching the grid, my partner Dave spotted something. Footprints? Bare footprints. That was the first thing that made the hair on my neck stand up. We followed them. A single set of tracks pressed deep into the snow. They were impossibly clear, as if whoever made them wasn't rushing, wasn't stumbling, just walking, calmly, through a blizzard. In bare feet, the tracks led us to a small clearing, and there he was. A man, sitting cross-legged at the base of a giant, frost-covered pine. He wore only a thin flannel shirt and jeans, his feet bare and stark against the white snow. He wasn't shivering. He wasn't blue. He was just sitting there, staring straight ahead with vacant eyes. We approached cautiously, calling out to him. "Sir, can you hear me? We're search and rescue." No response. His gaze was fixed on something we couldn't see. I reached out to touch his shoulder, expecting his skin to be like ice. It wasn't. It was warm, unnaturally warm, like he'd been sitting by a roaring fire. I jerked my hand back. "Dave," I whispered. "He's warm." Dave knelt, checking for a pulse. He's alive. Pulse is strong, steady. It didn't make any sense. The air was so cold it hurt to breathe. Yet this man was radiating heat. That's when I noticed the circle around him. For about 10 feet in every direction, the snow on the ground hadn't just melted. It was gone. The frozen earth was exposed, dark and damp. But just beyond that circle, the frost was thick, coating everything. The branches of the pine tree directly above him were dripping, water freezing into icicles as soon as it left the thawed zone. It was as if he was his own personal furnace, a bubble of impossible warmth in the heart of a deep freeze. We tried to talk to him, to get him to stand, but he was completely unresponsive. It was like trying to move a statue. His muscles were rigid, locked in place. The only thing that moved were his eyes, which would occasionally dart into the darkness of the surrounding woods. As we worked to get him onto a rescue sled, I saw something else that chilled me far more than the wind. A few yards away, half buried in a snowdrift, was a deer. It was frozen solid, its eyes wide with terror, its legs bent at unnatural angles, as if it had been flash-frozen mid. The strangest part, the carcass was right on the edge of the thawed circle, its front half encased in ice, while its back half, the part closer to the man, was covered in a strange, dark frost that looked almost burnt. It looked like it had been running from the man, and the cold had caught it. But that wasn't right. The cold was everywhere except around the man. We finally managed to lift him onto the sled. He weighed next to nothing, far less than a man his size should. As we secured the straps, he finally spoke. His voice was a dry, rasping whisper, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. He didn't look at us. He just kept staring into the trees. "It's so hungry," he rasped. "Always so hungry." A shiver that had nothing to do with the temperature crawled down my spine. "Sir, what's hungry? Are you hungry?" "We have food." He turned his head slowly, and for the first time, he looked at me. His eyes were not the eyes of a lost hiker. They were ancient and predatory. A faint, horrifying smile touched his lips. "Not me," he whispered. "The hunger is me." Suddenly, the wind howled, a vicious, screaming gust that ripped through the clearing. The trees groaned, and the woods, which had been silent, came alive with the sound of snapping branches. Dave and I exchanged a panicked look. We had to get out of there. Now, we fired up the snowmobiles and took off, pulling the sled behind us. The whole way back, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, stalked by something that moved just beyond the reach of our headlights. Something that thrived in the killing cold. We got him to the local clinic. The doctor was baffled. The man had no frostbite, no hypothermia. His core temperature was 101 degrees, but he was severely malnourished, almost skeletal beneath his clothes, despite his apparent strength. They hooked him up to an IV, and for a while, he just lay there, silent again. I stayed at the clinic, unable to leave. I had to know what happened to him. Around 3 a.m., a nurse came running out of his room, her face pale. "He's gone," she said, breathless. "The window, it's open." We rushed in. The room was freezing. The window was wide open, snow blowing in. But that wasn't the scary part. The fourth bag was frozen solid. The glass of water on the nightstand had cracked, a column of ice bursting from its top. Everything in the room was covered in a layer of thick, white frost. Everything except the bed. The bed he was in was warm. The sheets were still radiating a faint heat, and on the frost-covered windowsill, pointing out into the night, was a single set of fresh, bare footprints. They never found him. The search was called off after another week, but the locals, the old-timers who have lived in these woods their whole lives, they know the stories. They talk about a spirit of the lonely places, a thing born from hunger and cold. They say it can wear a man's skin, that it walks barefoot in the snow, and that it carries a heart of fire and an endless, gnawing appetite. They call it by an old name, one spoken only in whispers. Wendigo. I never went back to search and rescue after that. Sometimes, when the winter wind howls outside my window, I think of that man. I think of his warm skin in the freezing cold, the frozen deer, and his final, terrible words. The hunger is me, and I know, deep in my bones, that he's still out there, walking through the snow, forever warm and forever hungry. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next descent into the dark. Stay safe out there. The desert air was still and cold, biting at the exposed skin on my face and hands. I've been a tracker for 20 years, mostly for the county sheriff's department, sometimes for private clients looking for lost livestock or pets. I know this land like the back of my hand. I can tell you the weight of a coyote just by the depth of its print, the age of a deer by the splay of its hoof. But what I saw that morning, etched into the ochre dust, was something that made the hair on my arms stand up. It started with a call about a missing prize-winning ram, a big fella named Goliath. The rancher was frantic. The tracks were fresh, clear as day. They looked like a large canine, maybe a wolf, but bigger than any I'd ever seen in this part of the country. The stride was long, powerful. I settled in for a long walk, my rifle slung over my shoulder, my eyes glued to the ground. For the first mile, it was routine. The prince led away from the ranch, heading straight into the labyrinthine canyons and mesas that defined the landscape. Then, things started to get weird. The prince began to change. It wasn't sudden. It was gradual, almost imperceptible at first. The back pad of the paw prints seemed to elongate. The toes, once clustered together, started to separate. I knelt down, my glove tracing the edge of a track. It was still a paw print, but it was distorted, stretched, as if the creature was reshaping itself with every step. I'd seen tracks warped by soft sand or mud, but this was different. The ground here was firm, baked hard by the sun. The print was perfect, just wrong. I pushed on, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. My rational mind was screaming at me to turn back, that this was some kind of elaborate hoax, but my tracker's instinct, the part of me that lives and breathes this work, was hooked. I had to know what was at the end of this trail. With every 100 yards, the transformation became more pronounced. The claws seemed to retract, the pads flattening, merging, until the track looked less like a paw and more like a crude, misshapen human foot. The stride, however, never broke. There were no scuff marks, no signs of a pause or a struggle. It was a seamless, fluid transition. My heart was hammering against my ribs. This wasn't an animal. This wasn't human. It was something else. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Shadows grew long and menacing, twisting the familiar shapes of rocks and cacti into monstrous figures. I knew I should make camp, but I couldn't. The trail was pulling me forward, an invisible string tied to my curiosity and my fear. The tracks were now unmistakably human. Barefoot. A large man, maybe size 12 or 13, with a long, loping stride that ate up the ground. But they weren't normal. The arch was too high, the toes too long, almost like fingers, and there was a coldness to them, a palpable sense of dread that seemed to emanate from the very earth they were pressed into. It felt like I was following a ghost, a phantom that had walked this way moments before me. I rounded a bend in the canyon, and that's when I saw it. Up ahead, silhouetted against the dying light, was a figure. It was tall and gaunt, standing perfectly still. Its back to me. It was too far to make out details, but its posture was unnatural, rigid, like a statue carved from obsidian. It hadn't heard me. The wind was in my favor, and decades of tracking had taught me to move like a whisper. I dropped to one knee, raising my rifle and looking through the scope. My hand was shaking. I centered the crosshairs on the figure's back. It was wearing what looked like a tattered hide, draped over its shoulders. Its skin was the color of dust and twilight. As I watched, it slowly, deliberately turned its head. It didn't turn its body, hoosed its head a full 180 degrees, the way an owl does. Through the scope, I saw its face, and my blood ran cold. It wasn't human. The eyes were too large, too dark, glowing with a faint, predatory light. The nose was flat, the mouth a lipless slit that stretched too wide. But the worst part, the part that will haunt my nightmares for the rest of my life, was that it was chewing on something. Something that looked disturbingly like raw meat. There was no sign of the ram, no Goliath, just this thing. It stared directly at me, through the scope, through the miles of desert, as if it had known I was there all along. A low sound drifted across the canyon, a sound that wasn't a growl or a cry, but something in between. It was a guttural, clicking noise, a mimicry of speech that curdled my insides. It was the sound of a predator that enjoyed the hunt, that savored the fear of its prey. I didn't fire. I couldn't. My finger was frozen on the trigger. In that moment, I understood. I wasn't the hunter. I was being led. This whole chase, this impossible trail, was a game. Its game. The figure slowly turned its head back to the front, and with a speed that defied physics, it scrambled up the sheer canyon wall, moving on all fours like a spider. disappearing over the edge into the deepening darkness. I didn't follow. I scrambled back the way I came, not daring to look behind me, the sound of that clicking laughter echoing in my mind. I ran through the night, fueled by a terror I'd never known. When I finally stumbled back to the ranch, dawn was breaking. The rancher asked me if I'd found his ram. I just shook my head, unable to speak. How could I explain that what I found was so much worse? I quit tracking the next day. Some trails aren't meant to be followed. Some things are meant to be left alone, in the dust, where the footprints change mid. Thanks for listening, and please, be careful out there. You never know what's watching. Follow 4 more stories from the shadows. The cold started the night I got back. Not the kind that seeps in from a drafty window, but a deep, biting cold that felt like it came from inside my own bones. I'm a search and rescue volunteer. We'd just spent 3 days in the backwoods of northern Minnesota, looking for a hiker who'd gone missing. We found him, thankfully. He was hypothermic, disoriented, rambling about something tall and gaunt that had been watching him from the trees. Something that smelled like a forgotten grave. We chalked it up to delirium, a mind cracked by the cold and isolation. That first night home, I woke up shivering, my teeth chattering so hard my jaw ached. I cranked up the thermostat, but it didn't help. When I got out of bed, my feet crunched. Primera looked down. A thin, crystalline layer of frost had formed on the hardwood floor around my bed. A perfect, chilling circle. I blamed the old house, a tired furnace. Anything but the truth. But the next morning, the frost was gone, vanished as if it had never been there. The only thing left was a damp patch on the floor and a cold that lingered in the room like a bad memory. The second night was worse. I piled on blankets, wore thermal underwear, and even a beanie. I drifted into a restless sleep, filled with nightmares of splintered bone and endless snow-covered forests. I woke up gasping, not from the cold this time, but from the sound. A faint, rhythmic scratching. It seemed to come from just outside my bedroom window. I lay frozen, listening. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. It was slow, deliberate. Then, a low guttural sound. Something between a growl and a whisper. A sound that seemed to say my name on a freezing exhale. My heart hammered against my ribs. I wanted to look, but a primal fear held me down, screaming at me not to. When morning came, the frost was back, thicker this time, creeping up the legs of my bed frame. And on the window pane, etched into the condensation, was a single, impossibly long handprint. It wasn't human. The fingers were too long, too thin, like sharpened sticks. I spent the day in a daze, the rescued hiker's words echoing in my head. Tall, gaunt, smelled like a forgotten grave. Was I losing my mind? Was this some bizarre form of PTSD from the rescue? I tried to rationalize it. I called a repairman for the furnace. He said everything was fine. I sealed my windows with plastic sheeting. The cold just laughed. It wasn't getting in from the outside. It was already in it was with me. That night, I decided to stay awake. I brewed a pot of coffee so strong it was almost sludge and sat in my living room. Every light in the house blazing. For hours, there was nothing but the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock. I almost convinced myself I was crazy. Then, around 3 a.m., the temperature plummeted. My breath plumed in front of my face. The lights flickered, dimmed, and then died, plunging me into absolute darkness. My ears strained, and I heard it. A soft crunching sound from the kitchen, like someone walking on broken glass. Or frost. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a cast iron skillet, and held it like a weapon. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep my grip. A shape emerged from the darkness of the hallway. It was tall, impossibly so, its head scraping the ceiling. It was emaciated, its limbs like twisted branches, its skin the pale, waxy color of a corpse. Left too long in the snow, its eyes, they weren't eyes, they were hollow sockets that burned with a faint blue light. A light that promised nothing but an endless, gnawing hunger. The stench hit me then, The smell of decay and frozen earth. The exact smell the hiker had described. It filled my lungs, choking me. It took a slow, deliberate step towards me, its joints cracking like ice. It wasn't walking, it was gliding, its movements unnatural and jerky. I could see the frost spreading out from its feet, a creeping tide of white death across my floor. It tilted its head, and a sound slithered from its throat, a dry, rattling whisper that I felt more than heard. It was a single word. Hungry. I didn't scream. I couldn't. The sound was trapped in my throat, frozen solid. All I could do was scramble backward, tripping over my own coffee table. The skillet flew from my hands, clattering uselessly on the floor. I was on my back, exposed, helpless. The thing loomed over me, its skeletal frame blocking out what little moonlight trickled through the window. It lowered its head, those burning pits of eyes staring directly into mine. I could feel the cold radiating from it, a physical force that was stealing the warmth from my body, from my very soul. It had followed me, from the deep woods, through the snow. It wasn't the hiker it had been watching, it was me. During the rescue, I had eaten more than my share of the rations, driven by an exhaustion so deep it felt like starvation. A simple, selfish act, and in that moment of weakness, I had called to it, or perhaps it had called to me. The hiker wasn't delirious. He was a warning I had ignored. The creature opened its mouth, a jagged black hole lined with what looked like splintered shards of bone. The stench was overwhelming. I closed my eyes, waiting for the end, waiting for the cold to finally consume me. I felt a breath on my face, colder than a winter gale, and then nothing. I don't know how long I lay there. When I finally dared to open my eyes, the sun was rising. The lights were back on. The frost was gone. The only evidence that it had ever been there was the damp floor and the deep, unshakable cold that had taken root inside me. I sold the house that week. I moved 1,000 miles south to a place where snow is just a story people tell. I live in a constant, oppressive heat, but it doesn't matter. The cold is still with me. It's inside my blood, a permanent guest. Sometimes, late at night, when the air conditioning is on full blast, I see it. A faint shimmer of frost on the window pane. I hear a faint scratching at the door. I know it's still out there. It's patient. It knows that winter always comes, one way or another. And it knows that one day, I'll be hungry again. I just hope that when that day comes, the graveyard shift is a lonely place. For a 911 dispatcher like me, it's usually a predictable rhythm of the city's nocturnal pulse. But last Tuesday, that rhythm broke. It started with a call at 2:30 a.m. The line was staticky. A woman's voice choked with panic. He's trying to get in. He's mimicking my husband's voice, but it's not him. I locked the door, but he's scratching at it. The scratching sound that came through the receiver was unnerving, like nails on a chalkboard, but deeper, more rhythmic. I got her address, dispatched a unit, and tried to keep her on the line. But then, a sickening crunch, a strangled gasp, and the line went dead. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Protocol is protocol. So I tried calling back. No answer. When the officers arrived at the suburban home, they found the couple, a Mr. and Mrs. Gable, watching television. They were confused, insisting they never called 911. The front door was pristine, not a scratch on it. They looked at the officers like they were crazy. The officers on site logged it as a prank call, a swatting attempt, maybe. But I couldn't shake the raw terror in that woman's voice, and the scratching. I can still hear it. 2 nights later, 3:42 a.m. Another call. This time, an elderly man. "It's in the yard," he whispered, his voice trembling. "It looks like my dog, Rusty, but its legs are wrong. It's standing up, watching the house. It just called my name." Before I could get his full address, he screamed, a sound that was abruptly cut short, as if a hand was clammed over his mouth. Then, silence. I traced the call to a farmhouse on the outskirts of town. Again, I sent a unit, and again, the report came back the same. An elderly man, Mr. Henderson, was found safe. A bit grumpy about being woken up. He said his dog, Rusty, had been sleeping at the foot of his bed all night. He denied making any call. The officers noted a series of strange, deep gouges on the oak tree in his front yard, but dismissed them as animal markings. I started digging, pulling call logs from the past few months. My blood ran cold. It was a pattern. A call every few nights, always between 2 and 4 a.m. Always a voice filled with primal fear, describing something unnatural, something imitating a loved one or a pet. And in every single case, the responding officers found the callers perfectly fine, with no memory of the call. My supervisor, a grizzled veteran named Dave, told me to drop it. "Stress of the job, kid," he'd said, patting my shoulder. "You're hearing things, letting the ghouls of the graveyard shift get to you." But I knew what I heard. I started recording the calls on my personal phone, needing proof that I wasn't losing my mind. The descriptions became more detailed, more horrifying. A woman sobbing that her cat was walking on its hind legs and whispering her name from the hallway. A man barricaded in his bathroom, swearing that his reflection was moving on its own, its smile stretching too wide. Each call ended with that same abrupt, terrifying silence, and each follow-up was the same story. "No, officer, we didn't call. Everything's fine." It felt like I was the only person who remembered these moments of terror. Like these people were having their fear, their very memories, erased. I started noticing another, more subtle pattern. In the background of each call, just before it cut out, there was a faint sound. A low, guttural click. It was almost imperceptible, like a strange bird call. I played the recordings over and over, isolating the sound. Click and click. It was the same every time. Last night was the worst. A call came in at 1:58 a.m. It was from Sarah, my coworker, who had the night off. Her voice was a strained whimper. "Mark, it's outside my window. It looks like you bat your eyes. They're all wrong. It's smiling at me." I could hear the faint sound of glass beginning to crack. "It's saying my name," she cried. "It wants me to let it in." I told her to hang up, to call the police from her cell, not to talk to me. No, you don't understand," she sobbed. The call. It didn't come from my phone. It came from the baby monitor in my son's room. And then I heard it, loud and clear. Not from my headset, but from right behind me, in the dark, empty corner of the dispatch center. That low, guttural click. The line went dead. I spun around in my chair, my heart seizing in my chest. The room was empty. The hum of the computers was the only sound. I called Sarah's cell. She picked up on the second ring, sounding sleepy and annoyed. "Mark, it's 2 a.m. What's wrong?" I asked if she was okay, if she had just called me. She laughed. "No, I was sound asleep. You must have been dreaming." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I lugged it, just like all the others. Prank call, but I know what I heard. And I know what I'm looking at now. On the security feed for the dispatch center's entrance, the camera is glitching. The time stamp flickers, and for just a split second, I can see a figure standing there in the static, just outside the glass doors. It's tall and gaunt, its limbs long and bent at unnatural angles. It's looking right at the camera, and it's smiling. Its face, it's my face. But the eyes are just dark, hollow pits, and as the feed clears, the figure is gone. All that remains on the glass door are for long, deep scratches. I haven't told anyone. Who would believe me? They'd think I'm crazy, that the stress finally broke me. I've locked the doors to the dispatch center. I'm not supposed to. It's a major security breach, but I don't care. I've been watching the cameras all night. Nothing. But the calls have stopped. The last call was to me. It knows my name. It knows my face. I keep listening to the silence, waiting for the phone to ring, or for a scratch at the door, waiting for it to use my own voice to ask me to let it in. And the worst part is, I don't know who it will be pretending to be, but I know one thing for sure. Whatever you do, don't answer after dark. You might not remember the call, but it will remember you. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy these stories, please follow for more. The flickering fire was my only companion, or so I thought. I'd set up camp deep in the Canadian wilderness, miles from any soul, seeking silence. But the first night, something felt off. The woods, which should have been alive with nocturnal sounds, were dead quiet. I chalked it up to nerves, the city boy in me getting spooked by the vast, dark emptiness. I built my fire, cooked my rations, and settled into my sleeping bag. The stars a brilliant canopy above. The next morning, I woke to a strange sight, about 50 yards from my own. There was another fire pit. It was crude, just a circle of blackened stones, but it was unmistakably new. There were no tracks, no signs of anyone approaching. Primera walekid, over my boots crunching on the frosted ground. The ashes were cold, but not days old. Someone had been here last night. I spent the day on edge, calling out a few times, hoping for a friendly response from a fellow hiker. Only the wind answered. I told myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe another camper had passed through silently in the night. That evening, I made my fire bigger, a primal instinct to ward off the unknown. I tried to read, but my eyes kept darting to the empty space where the new fire pit sat. Sleep was a long time coming. When I woke on the second morning, my blood ran cold. Next to the strange fire pit, there was now a bedroll. It was old and weathered, made of what looked like deer hide, neatly rolled and tied with sinew. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a deliberate, creeping intrusion. I yelled out, my voice cracking. "Hello? Is anyone there?" This isn't funny. The silence that followed was heavier than before, suffocating. I packed a day bag, grabbed my compass and a flare gun, and decided to scout the area. I had to know who was playing this sick game. I spent hours circling my camp in ever-widening loops, searching for any sign of human life, a broken twig, a footprint, anything. I found nothing. The forest floor was undisturbed, as if my phantom neighbor had simply materialized out of thin air. Returning to camp as dusk began to bleed through the trees, I felt a knot of dread tighten in my stomach. I was being watched. I knew it with a certainty that defied logic. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against a thick pine, my hunting knife clutched in my hand, staring into the oppressive darkness beyond my fire's glow. My ears strained, picking up every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, attributing them to the thing that was tormenting me. The third morning was the worst. A new addition had joined the phantom campsite, a makeshift lean-to, constructed from fallen branches and lashed together with more sinew, stood beside the bedroll, and hanging from a low branch nearby was a small, tattered leather pouch. I didn't want to look, but I had to. My hands trembled as I untied the pouch. Inside were 3 small, smooth, white stones. Just stones. But they felt significant, like a marker, a claim. I was no longer just a visitor in these woods. I was part of something, an unwilling participant in a ritual I didn't understand. The silence was the most terrifying part. A forest this large should have birds, squirrels, something. But there was nothing. It was as if all life had fled, leaving just me and my silent, unseen companion. Panic began to set in. My plan of a peaceful week-long retreat was shattered. My only thought now was to get out. I decided to pack up and leave at first light the next day. I couldn't bear another night of this slow, creeping horror. That evening, I barely ate. My fire felt small and inadequate, the darkness pressing in from all sides. My eyes were glued to the other campsite, half expecting to see a figure step out of the shadows and take a seat by the cold fire pit. But nothing moved. That night, a storm rolled in. The wind howled through the trees like a tormented spirit, and rain lashed against my tent. Sleep was impossible. Every time a branch scraped against the nylon, I flinched, thinking it was finally here. Around what must have been 3 a.m., I heard a sound that made my soul freeze. It was a voice, carried on the wind, but it wasn't a human voice. It was thin, reedy, and it was mimicking me. It was repeating the words I had yelled out 2 days earlier. "Hello, is anyone there?" But it warped my voice, stretching the syllables, making it sound like a pained, desperate plea. Then it started laughing, a dry, rattling sound like dead leaves skittering across pavement. I scrambled for my flare gun, my fingers fumbling with the latch. I didn't know what I was going to shoot at, but I had to do something. The mimicking started again, this time closer. It was my own voice, twisted into a grotesque parody, whispering just outside my tent. I couldn't take it anymore. I burst out of the tent, flare gun raised, and fired into the darkness. The red light illuminated the clearing in a hellish glow, and for a split second, I saw it. It was standing by the lean-to, impossibly tall and gaunt, its limbs long and spidery. Its skin was the color of ash, stretched tight over a skeletal frame, and its head was like a deer's skull, bleached white, with gaping black sockets where eyes should have been. It turned its head towards me, and even though it had no eyes, I felt its gaze pierce me. The flare died, plunging me back into darkness. I didn't wait. I abandoned everything, my tent, my pack, all my gear. I just ran. I ran blindly through the storm-thrashed woods, branches whipping at my face, my lungs burning. The rattling laughter and the sound of my own stolen voice echoed behind me, sometimes seeming to come from right beside me, then from high up in the trees. I didn't know how long I ran for. Hours, it must have been. I tripped and fell countless times, but I always scrambled back up, fueled by sheer terror. I ran until the sun came up, until I stumbled out of the woods and onto a dirt logging road. I followed it for what felt like an eternity until the truck finally found me. I was a wreck, scratched, bruised, and babbling incoherently about a campsite that grew and a voice that stole my own. The driver thought I was crazy, but he gave me a ride to the nearest town. I never told anyone the full story. Who would believe me? They'd say I was hallucinating, that the isolation got to me. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. Sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls just right, I can still hear it. My own voice, whispering from the darkness. "Hello? Is anyone there?" It's a reminder that I left a part of myself back in those woods, at the campsite that kept expanding. And I know, with chilling certainty, that something is still there, waiting by its fire pit, adding to its collection, waiting for the next visitor. Don't go looking for silence in the deep woods. You might find it, but it's a hungry, watchful silence, and it might just decide to make you a permanent part of its collection. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more tailies from the edge of the map. Stay safe out there. The old man at the supply store warned me when I bought the ranch. The old man at the supply store warned me when I bought the ranch. He said the land was old, and it remembered things. I just laughed it off, chalking it up to local superstition. The price was too good to pass up. 1,000 acres of rolling hills, a sturdy farmhouse, and miles of fence line to keep my cattle in. It was a dream come true, or so I thought. The first few weeks were peaceful. I spent my days mending fences and my nights on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. The silence was profound, broken only by the lowing of cattle or the chirping of crickets. But then, it started. It was subtle at first. I'd be walking the northern fence line, the longest stretch on the property, and I'd get this feeling, you know the one. The prickling on the back of your neck, the sudden chill that has nothing to do with the temperature. I'd stop and scan the horizon, but see nothing but endless grass swaying in the wind. I told myself it was just the isolation getting to me. A city boy adjusting to the vast emptiness. A week later, I heard it, a soft, rhythmic sound. Thump, thump, thump. It was just on the other side of the fence. I was walking, and the sound was keeping pace with me, perfectly in sync. When I stopped, it stopped. When I started walking again, so did the thumping. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Only the wind answered. I peered through the barbed wire, but the grass on the other side was tall, easily whatever was there was completely hidden. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I picked up my pace, almost jogging, and the thumping matched my speed without missing a beat. It wasn't human. No person could move that silently through the tall grass, making only the sound of their footfalls. I broke into a dead sprint for the last 100 yards to the farmhouse, the thumping keeping pace right until I vaulted onto the porch and slammed the door behind me. I stood there, gasping for air, listening. There was nothing. Just silence. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Every creak of the old house made me jump. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. The next day, I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Stress, fatigue, an overactive imagination. I had work to do. The cattle needed checking, and a section of fence near the southern border was down. I saddled my horse, Dusty, a calm and reliable old boy, and headed out, deliberately avoiding the northern line. The day passed without incident. The sun was warm, the work was hard, and it felt good to be productive. As evening approached, I started my ride back to the farmhouse. My route took me parallel to the eastern fence line, and then I heard it again. Thump, thump, thump. Not the sound of hooves on dirt, but something else. Something heavy. I glanced over. On the other side of the wire, something was moving through the tall grass. It was keeping perfect pace with my horse. Dusty felt it too. His ears swiveled back and forth, and he let out a low, nervous whinny. I tried to calm him, patting his neck, but my own hands were trembling. I urged him into a canter. The thing on the other side of the fence matched our speed instantly. The thumping grew faster, heavier. I could see the tall grass parting as it moved, a serpentine trail being carved through the sea of green, but I still couldn't see what it was. It was staying just low enough to remain hidden. "Giddy up," I yelled, kicking Dusty into a full gallop. The horse flattened his ears and stretched his neck, flying across the pasture. The sound from beyond the fence was a thunderous drumming now, a terrifying, relentless rhythm that seemed to shake the very ground. It was impossibly fast. No animal I knew could move like that, so fast and yet so concealed. It wasn't running, it was gliding, a monstrous, unseen force shadowing my every move. We reached the corral near the barn, and I practically fell out of the saddle, fumbling with the gate. Dusty bolted inside, his sides heaving. I slammed the gate shut and spun around, my eyes locked on the eastern fence line. The thumping stopped. The grass was still. It was as if nothing had ever been there. From that day on, it became a nightly ritual. I'd be checking the herd, mending a post, or just walking the property, and it would be there. It didn't matter which fence line I was near, north, south, east, or west. It would appear on the other side, a hidden companion, its footfalls a perfect echo of my own. I never saw it, not clearly. Sometimes, on a moonlit night, I'd catch a glimpse of movement, a dark, elongated shape that seemed to ripple and contort as it moved. It was too low to be a man on horseback, too fluid to be a coyote or a wolf. I started carrying a rifle with me everywhere. One evening, driven by a mix of terror and frustration, I decided to confront it. I was walking the western line, the sun a bloody smear on the horizon. The thumping started right on cue. I stopped, raised my rifle, and aimed at the spot in the grass where the sound was coming from. "Show yourself," I screamed, my voice cracking. For a moment, there was silence. The thumping stopped. The wind died down. The whole world seemed to be holding its breath. Then, slowly, the grass began to part. I saw something. It was dark and covered in what looked like matted fur. But the shape was all wrong. It was Racine, unfolding itself. It wasn't an animal on four legs. It was getting taller, impossibly taller. My finger was on the trigger, my hands slick with sweat. Just as a head-like shape began to clear the top of the grass, it spoke. It wasn't a voice. It was a sound that scraped its way out of its throat. A perfect imitation of my own scream from moments before. "Show yourself," it rasped, the sound distorted, guttural, like my voice being played through a broken speaker filled with gravel. I didn't fire. I couldn't. My blood ran cold. I dropped the rifle and ran. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life, not daring to look back. I didn't hear it follow me this time. It didn't need to. The sound of my own terrified voice, twisted and mocked, chased me all the way back to the farmhouse. I locked the doors, barricaded them with furniture, and huddled in the darkest corner of the living room, shaking. The mimicry, ... That's what broke me. It wasn't just pacing me. It was learning me, observing me. The ranch is for sale now. I can't stay here. I sleep with the lights on and jump at every sound. Sometimes, late at night, I think I can hear it. A soft thumping just outside the house. And sometimes, in the dead of night, I hear a whisper on the wind. A faint, gravelly voice asking the same question over and over. A perfect imitation of me. Is anyone there? I never answer. I just pray that whoever buys this place has the good sense to listen to the old man at the supply store. Some land remembers. And what this land remembers, it doesn't like to be alone. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Thank you for listening. The frost bit deep, but the cabin was a godsend. We'd been lost for 2 days. Our trail vanished under a sudden blizzard. Then, through the swirling snow, we saw it. A small, sturdy-looking cabin. A thin wisp of smoke curling from its chimney. Relief washed over us, so potent it was almost dizzying. Pushing the heavy oak door open, we stumbled inside. A group of 4 freezing, exhausted hikers. The first thing we noticed was the warmth. A cast iron stove in the corner glowed with embers, radiating a heat that felt like life itself. The second thing was the food. The shelves were packed. Cans of beans, jars of preserves, sacks of flour and sugar, dried meats hanging from the rafters. It was a prepper's dream. A feast laid out for kings. For a moment, we just stared, dumbfounded by our luck. It was too good to be true. Sam, ever the practical one, went straight to the stove. "It's still warm," he said, his voice a low murmur of disbelief. "Someone was here, maybe just a few minutes ago." We called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" Our voices echoed in the small space, met only by the howling of the wind outside. There was no one. The table was set for one, a single plate and fork, but the chair was pushed back, as if someone had left in a hurry. A half-eaten biscuit sat on the plate, looking fresh. It was unsettling. Why would anyone leave a warm shelter in a full pantry in the middle of a blizzard? We were too cold and hungry to question our good fortune for long. We decided they must have gone to gather more wood and would be back soon. We'd explain then. For now, survival was the priority. While Maya started organizing some food to cook, I ran my hand along the rough-hewn log walls. That's when my fingers snagged on something. I looked closer. Deep, ragged gouges were clawed into the wood, not just in one spot, but all over. They were long and splintered, some as deep as my knuckle. They weren't from an animal trying to get in. They were from the inside, as if something or someone had been desperately trying to get out. I called the others over. A chill, colder than the wind outside, crept down our spines. The scratches were everywhere, concentrated around the single, small window and the heavy door. They were frantic, desperate marks. The wood around the door latch was shredded, splintered into nothing. "What could have done this?" Liam whispered. His eyes wide, we had no answer. The sheer violence of it was terrifying. It told a story of pure panic, of a desperate, failed escapee. The cozy cabin suddenly felt like a trap. As night failed, the blizzard raged on, trapping us completely. We huddled together, the initial relief having curdled into a thick, cloying fear. We ate the cabin's food, but every bite felt wrong, like we were eating something we shouldn't. The silence inside was heavy, broken only by the storm and the crackle of the fire. Every shadow seemed to twist and writhe. Every creak of the old wood sounded like a footstep. We took turns keeping watch, armed with a fire poker and a heavy skillet. It felt foolish, but it was all we had. Around midnight, during my watch, I heard it. A sound that wasn't the wind. It was a low, guttural noise from outside. Something between a whine and a growl. It was a sound of profound hunger, of an emptiness that could never be filled. I froze, every muscle in my body screaming. The sound circled the cabin, slow and deliberate. Then came the scratching, not on the walls, but on the outside of the door. A slow, methodical scraping, like long nails testing the wood. We were all awake now, pressed together in the center of the room, as far from the walls as possible. The scratching continued for what felt like hours, a torturous symphony of impending doom. Then, it stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse. We held our breath, listening. A new sound started. A voice. It was faint at first, carried on the wind, but it was unmistakable. It was calling my name. Mark. Mark. I'm so hungry. Mark. ... It was a thin, reedy voice, warped and twisted, but it sounded eerily like my own mother. My blood ran cold. I knew it wasn't her. It couldn't be, but the mimicry was perfect. Then it called for Maya, using her little sister's voice. It whispered Liam's name in the voice of his late grandfather. It knew us. It was playing with us, using our deepest connections to lure us out. We clamped our hands over our ears, but the voices seemed to seep directly into our minds, promising warmth, safety, and an end to the gnawing hunger that had started to grow in our own stomachs. A hunger that felt unnatural and all-consuming. The night was an eternity of psychological torment. The entity outside never tried to break down the door. It didn't have to. It was breaking us down from the inside, piece by piece. The hunger it spoke of was infectious. Despite having eaten, we felt a ravenous, gnawing emptiness in our bellies, an unnatural craving for something we couldn't name. We looked at the sacks of flour, the jars of food, and then we looked at each other. A dark, primal thought flickered in the back of our minds. A thought so monstrous we pushed it away in horror. Was this what happened to the cabin's previous owner? Did the hunger drive them mad? Did they claw at the walls? Not to escape something outside, but to escape the thing growing inside them? The cabin wasn't a shelter. It was a larder, and it had just been restocked. When dawn finally broke, the storm had passed. The silence outside was absolute. The voice was gone. We waited, listening, for what felt like a lifetime before daring to move. Slowly, cautiously, Sam unbarred the door. The fresh snow was pristine, untouched. There were no tracks, no sign that anything had been there at all. It was as if the night had been a collective hallucination, but the scratches on the inside of the walls were still there. The memory of the voices was seared into our minds. We didn't waste a second. We grabbed our packs, left the food, left the warmth, and ran. We ran without looking back, fueled by a terror that went bound deep. We didn't stop until we hit a main road, flagging down a truck whose driver looked at us like he'd seen ghosts. We never talked about what happened in that cabin. Not really. How could we explain it? But sometimes, on cold, quiet nights, I can still hear that voice whispering my name. And sometimes, I feel that hunger, that awful, endless hunger. I look at the food in my own pantry and a cold dread washes over me. I think about the cabin, stocked and waiting in the silent woods. I think about the single place setting on the table, the warm stove, the fresh biscuit. It wasn't a trap for someone to walk into. It was a trap for someone to become. The cabin didn't just offer food. It fed on you. It fattened you up. Not with what was on the shelves, but with a hunger so vile it would make you turn on your own. The scratches on the walls weren't from someone trying to get out. They were from someone trying to keep the monster inside from ever leaving. The cabin is still out there, waiting for the next group of lost souls. Its stove warm, its pantry full, ready for its next meal. Thank you for listening to this chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story, Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the edge of the unknown. And if you ever find a perfectly stocked cabin in the woods, just keep walking. Some feasts are not worth the price. Stay safe out there, and see you in the next video.